Holy crap, guys. We had some pretty badass cinematics yesterday, so we felt the need to do a kind of on the spot Kun-Lai Campfire. We got Skull Shorties and Jakai today, and we're going to talk about what we thought of the 8.2.5 cinematics and potentially where it might be leading into 8.3, but I guess what we just thought of the war campaign overall. So, welcome back, guys, as usual.
Good to be here.
I'm still crying every day after seeing that cinematic, man.
Right? Dude,
It was at the start with the new cinematic, like the one in game. It was Tears of Joy over Rexxar being the first time ever in a World of Warcraft cinematic, and then it was Tears of Sorrow over our the best spiky boy, the cleavy boy of all time, Sarfang.
when I saw Rexar, I actually couldn't help but think of you, Skull, like during the first cutscene.
Apparently, you're not the only one.
I was like, oh, he's gonna be really happy about this. And honestly, like, this is off topic, but the fact that G Firepaw got some story, like, and I didn't expect this at all, but the fact that he got some lore moments this campaign was really awesome. But
apparently, he is very triggered and very unsettled by the idea of Orgrimmar being sieged again enough to stay all the way over in a Thunder Bluff.
And I can't blame the guy.
I mean, he was tortured, so yeah. I mean, him and Bane have something in common now that they can talk about.
Right? That would be cool if we got some dialogue in the future between the two of them directly, just so we could
At least, I bet you're glad that G is a rebel boy, at least.
Oh, I'm 100% glad about that.
I'd have, yeah, and say even I'd have rather you just stay out if not that. That'd have been extremely weird. Him
I
being
figured he would have
one of
tried to
this-
stay neutral, or kind of like, basically like, so like if you're a loyalist, and none of us are here loyalists, you basically, you do Sylvanas' biddings and whatnot within Orgrimmar, you check in on Gallywix, who's burning important paperwork of some kind, that could, track evidence to him and his misdeeds, which kind of hints that Gallywix and Sylvanas are still buddy-buddy. But you actually, you beat up Eitrig and punish him and parade him around the streets while people throw stuff at him.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, the walk of shame. Yep.
It's the only moment where you can, if you're a loyalist, you can decide then and there to leave Sylvanas' Horde. It's the final time you can do it, where you basically escape with Eitrig and you free him and bring him to the rebels.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, you take him to Sylvanas, and he's probably taken to somewhere like the Underhold, but as far as canonically, he is alive. And well, he even tells the loyalists like he holds nothing against them for what they did to him. So that's how nice Eitrig is. And here's the thing about Eitrig, he's now the final veteran orc that's notable enough after this too.
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea about that. I knew about the alternate ending to the war campaign, but I didn't know you did all that beforehand.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I'm currently working on doing the loyalist questline. I feel icky though. I feel really gross.
I want to do the loyalist stuff on a demon hunter.
I'm doing it on.
That was pretty interesting, but like I can understand the perspective. I don't have the same perspective, but like I can understand the perspective, I guess.
Ideologies.
Probably want to discuss the actual cinematics themselves.
Yes. So I think we should start with the one that takes place in Dustwallow Marsh first, and then we'll get to the Sarfang cinematic. So I'm gonna let you guys kind of talk about what you thought about it.
You can go and start on that one if you like.
Alright, I guess I'll start. So, Sarfang invites Anduin, Valera, and Matthias Shaw over to a tower within Duskwall Marsh. Believe me, we were gonna record it there, but we couldn't find a one without NPCs in it, even the one with the phased Theramore.
We tried.
We tried. We're just gonna go ahead and do it in front of the gates of Orgrimmar. But so Brock invites him there. Other rebels are there. Not a lot. Definitely, it shows the difference between Mr. Pandaria's rebellion and this one, where it's a lot more divided than Garrosh's was. Garrosh was a lot more
One-sided in a way.
one side. Like he only had mercenaries, like goblin mercenaries, and his orcs. Uh, and everybody else was against him. Even some orcs were against Garrosh, so it wasn't as populated as, say, the Forsaken. Almost all the Forsaken were on Team Sylvanas, and you had the Maghar, and you had most of the Bilgewater goblins, and obviously a few other characters like that you see basically when you go into Orgrimmar now after completing the campaign. You have people being paraded as Sylvanas loyalists in chains. But you have characters like Varrock, obviously, Bane, Jaina, Rexxar, Thalrisra, Lorthamar, Mela, Rokon, and I'm sure there's a few others. But they're there, and basically what happens there is Sarfang talks about the history of the Horde when questioned if he would be war chief or not.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically brings up the fact that the Horde was founded on some pretty dark shit, and not pleasant stuff, mind you. And he basically goes into a big old rant about how he's never known honor. Things that the Horde has done has not been honorable, and Anduin argues with him that the Horde can be great, and that Sarfang shoots back and goes, the Horde, as it stands, the heir of Blackhand is not Thrall or Vol'jin, who are very positive and good war chiefs. No, that's Sylvanas. Sylvanas is like the perfect blend of the bad within the Horde. And Anduin shoots back, we've had some pretty bad Alliance characters like Arthas, who became the Lich King, and Dalen, who, has been referenced a lot within Battle for Azeroth as a both positive and negative thing within the Alliance, especially regarding, what he did to, Theramore and Rexxar and the Orcs, the whole founding of Durotar stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, it kind of just goes back and forth between Sarfang and Anduin to the point where, Sarfang's like, that the Alliance and Horde won't be able to make peace for at least 1,000 years. And not even for 1,000 years. Sarfang doesn't believe it can even happen with that much time, which that's kind of weird when you think about it, because most of the people who, created the Horde by 1,000 years would be dead, except for maybe some Forsaken and Blood Elves, but everybody else would be dead. But, Anduin would also be dead too, because, unless he becomes Lightforged, which I don't know if Anduin would want that.
Nah, I don't like that.
And then Anduin's like, if you keep saying that, then what are we doing this for? What are we fighting this for? Which is a big old reference to Mist of Pandaria, which, of course, Anduin took a lot of things from Mists to heart. Mist of Pandaria was big character growth for Anduin and Vol'jin, which is unfortunate, and also Varian, of course. It was a big character growth for a lot of characters within Mists.
I was about to say, like, Lorthamar. Like, there was a lot of really, really good character moments in Mod.
Oh yeah, but Anduin was definitely a big one. But and then that kind of Sarfang off screen, he gets riled up by that. He gets rallied by Anduin's choice of words, and he goes to the other rebels and he goes, "What is our home?" And everyone kind of fights back with Azeroth. Azeroth is our home. It doesn't matter what faction we are on. It doesn't matter what race we are. We represent what's going to protect Azeroth, and those who are against that are in favor of destroying it, and that's not okay. It's a really great moment, and like I said, it's some of the first appearances for some characters, like Rexxar and Zakan and Balira.
So one
appearances.
One thing that I absolutely loved about this cinematic in particular is how well some of the faces were animated, where you could really just see what the character was thinking or feeling. That was something that I really, really noticed upon watching it. This is one I actually want to watch again pretty soon, and I know when I'm editing this, I'll get to see it many, many times.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I first watched it, it was actually, like, I had a little bit of a hard time hearing the audio, but it's funny, like, before the podcast, Skull told me about the reference to Pandaria with Anduin's dialogue, and I didn't even notice that, but that's such a nice little nod. I absolutely love that. And I think having Anduin and Sarfang have an interaction before the next cinematic was really cool. I mean, it feels like Blizzard. Okay, like honestly, the ending of the war campaign feels like a really, really proper finale. Like in Warlords of Draenor, the Garrison campaign. Oh my gosh, I felt like it was like Mr. Krabs as Krabby the Clown in that episode of SpongeBob. He's like, "Hey kids, thank you all for coming. Thank you." When Grom runs behind the gates of Tin and Jungle. But this feels like a really proper finale, and actually made me respect the war campaign a lot more. But Kai, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I'm going to be, I guess for lack of a better word, devil's advocate here, and say, I mean, I know ideology is a running theme with me, and well, actually, first I should add that that conversation between Anduin and Sarfang was very, that was a good one. I'm glad it wasn't just a bunch of, I guess you would say, cliche bravado. You know, there was actually something of a debate there, and Anduin had to kind of convince Sarfang to keep his morale in check. That hey, you are fighting for something. It's not just honor. Isn't just this word. It actually is a thing, and the Horde isn't just one person's legacy. It's everybody's legacy, I guess you would say, in the Horde, and like it can be something good, and it has been something good in many ways. But yeah, like I said, whenever I was saying I'm going to be devil's advocate here, because I think one thing this patch really helped to do, might come out as a bit of a shock. I think it helped portray. So I know Sylvanas, everybody's either got fatigue about discussing it or they don't want to hear about it because, you know, a lot of people liked her, a lot of people hated her, but typically most people are not indifferent. But there is no getting away from it. She had a major role to play this expansion. And I think, because I've played through all three perspectives, Alliance, Loyalist, and Rebel. And I kind of like how they portrayed the Loyalist side. It's, instead of just, we're standing by the war chief because we're blindly loyal and stuff, they try to portray it more as like, we feel that the Horde needs to have a firm hand, and sometimes you have to be kind of dispassionate. Like, yeah, we can seem cruel and calculating, but that's the only way you're going to survive in a world like this, where you have the old gods and like even the Legion, you know, before, not now, but before. That you're going to need that kind of cunning, that kind of cold, calculating demeanor in order to survive. And many people probably are of that perspective, because I mean, if you're outside of the game and you're like from the outside looking in, you're looking at Sylvanas and you're seeing like all the cruelty and all the negative crap she's done. But if you're actually in Azeroth and you're thinking of the long-term game, you're gonna want every advantage you can get on an enemy like the old god, something that is so terrible and so powerful that even Sargeras wanted to wipe the universe clean of all life, just to spare life of, I guess, being subjected to that sort of corruption.
Right.
So I just found that extremely interesting. Again, I can't really say I take a side anywhere, because I understand many perspectives, and it's hard to take a side whenever I feel like I understand all the perspectives in the fight. But I don't know. I thought it was really cool the way they, I guess just to repeat myself, the way they just made it to where it wasn't, the loyalist isn't just, loyalty to the war chief. No, there actually is some idealism behind it. There is actually a long-term goal and a reason for being a loyalist. And I admire that.
So something, Kai, that you said that I want to go back on a little bit was actually about Anduin and Sarfang. You know what's funny? This isn't really the first bit of dialogue where Anduin has been challenged. I believe in War Crimes, Garrosh kind of challenged him, not in a similar way, but just conversation piece-wise. And I really like it when Blizzard uses his character that way. I just wanted to throw that in there when he mentioned that, because I really, really like that about his character. That seems to happen with him a lot with his choices, right? Like, there's stuff that he says, people are kind of questioning it a lot. Or not questioning it, but challenging his ideals. So
Yeah, I really liked that about that cutscene. Is like I said, it's just it didn't have all the cliche dialogue I was expecting. There actually was a bit of tension there, a little bit of I guess tangible feeling dialogue. It felt kind of I guess immersive. It might be might not be the right word, but like it just felt it felt more real instead of just Draenor is free.
Oh, don't remind me of that.
it felt kind of cool.
Skull, any thoughts?
Regarding more of the cinematic, it was a really nice cinematic before what's to come. It definitely felt like a rallying point. I mean, I'll always be negative on the loyalist take. It doesn't feel right, especially after the next cinematic of siding against Starfang, siding against I want to say proper Horde, because they're definitely a much more positive thing. I can see why there are characters that are loyalists. I just can't really connect too well with them when, it's obvious to me what I would choose. It's obvious to me. But, like, that's kind of the beauty of the next cinematic because, of what happens. Because, I don't want to talk about the next cinematic just yet, but, like, Sarfang does not discriminate against the loyalists. He understands why they picked their side, and I think Nazgrim really helped him with understanding that mentality.
That was something I was going to bring up later, too, actually. It's funny you say that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like it's less about really wanting to like I said with the loyalist thing, like I said, it's more trying to think of things from their perspective, I guess. But like what are the advantages of siding with I guess you would say arguably cruel but commanding sort of war chief? And I feel like the other Windrunner sister whose name is suddenly slipping my mind because
Illyria.
Yeah, Illyria. Yeah, when she touched on that.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that too.
Yeah.
The basically how Illyria of all people was like, maybe we should just step aside and let her win, so that there can be a proper force that defends Azeroth against N'Zoth, which is a very curious thing to say, especially because she's under the influence of the Void.
I found that really interesting for her to say that, actually.
She would have a lot of perspective on it, too.
It felt a little bit out of character, which is why I find it a little suspicious. But, again, it's been a while since we've seen Illyria. But, like, the last time we saw Illyria do something really a lot was at Lordaeron, the very beginning of BFA, where she was like, I should have killed you, sister. Sylvanas is like,
how
so
rude, sister.
How rude, sister. Like, Sylvanas is involved. It's really interesting to see the start of BFA with Sylvanas, and now kind of close to the end with Sylvanas, and how she feels about her role, feels about her title of War Chief, which again we'll be getting into in the next cinematic or topic. But yeah, it's really suspicious, and it's really interesting that Illyria said that regarding Sylvanas and her horde. Maybe it begs the whole thing. Like, apparently Sylvanas's loyalist side was bigger than the combined might of the Alliance and the Horde rebels, which is a head scratcher for me. But hey,
I know. Does that imply that the Horde was kicking the Alliance's ass in the faction war? Like, I'm just genuinely curious about that, or like the loyalist.
It seemed implied that actually it was the other way around, that the Alliance was destroying the Horde.
That's what I thought.
But I guess unless the Nazjatar thing really took out a lot of the Alliance's naval force, which apparently it did.
The Horde was only, I believe, 1 ship or 2 ships. I forget. It was like maybe like 3 ships, while the Alliance fleet was the vast majority. So it seems like the Alliance's fleet was mostly taken out, while the Horde's fleet was already taken out. But I mean, I guess when you take into perspective that Sylvanas was probably recruiting dead people into her ranks, it makes sense and why her numbers would outrank the Alliance and Horde.
She has a lot more fodder in her army, technically, than the Alliance has.
Especially when you bring up the undead night elves she recruited from Teldrassil and the War of Thorns.
Oh, I always forget about that storyline, if I'll be perfectly honest, the Dark Shore stuff.
It's a little forgettable, but I wouldn't say it's like completely forgettable. It's still pretty important. But
No, I'm very interested to see, especially the stuff with Elune. I'm very curious to see where that goes.
It's pretty forgettable from the perspective of hearing almost nothing from the people that we really should be hearing a lot from.
Speaking of that, though,
Like, where the heck is Tyrande?
Yeah, I was
you
wondering
actually-
that too.
you actually can ask Anduin regarding that, and apparently, he's been trying to reach out to Tyrande for a while now, and she has not gotten back to him, and vengeance has consumed her. And Chandras is present as the leader of the Night Elves, so
I really liked her during the quest line.
Chandras is, younger than Tyrande, obviously, and she has some time in Najatar with the Horde, so I do think it's definitely possible that Chandras might take over leadership, and we might have a very similar situation regarding Sylvanas with Tyrande, where anger and bad negative emotions have consumed her. And then there's the whole thing with Talanji. Talanji and the Zandalari weren't present either for the rebellion for either side, so it sounds like they stayed out of it. But there's also the whole thing with her going on between her anger to the Alliance, what they did to Rastakhan. So I am curious if they're going to handle that with like Talanji, Tyrande, and maybe even Sylvanas as a three-way story that is impactful in the next one. Like,
Well, it's funny you say that, Skull, because I was actually wondering where Talanji was, and I thought about it like you said. It's like, well, she's probably pissed off about the death of Rastakhan, and probably wouldn't be too keen on working with the Alliance after that. So I think she probably, again, she just stayed out of it, especially, as the Queen of Zandalar. She's on equal with everyone. She could do whatever she wants.
She's technically the highest ranking member of the Horde right now, because she's equal to a war chief status, at least, although there is no war chief. And of course, after the next cinematic, Liadrin patrols the streets to ensure that the city is not in chaos, because Nazaz's forces and Sylvanas' forces are trying to cause a little bit of chaos within the city after what happens, of course, next with the lack thereof of a war chief.
So, are you guys ready to get to the next cinematics? I think I am at this point.
I think we're good. Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, Saurfang ends up dying in a Mak'gara against Sylvanas. A lot of stuff goes on in this cinematic. It's one of the beautiful, beautiful CGI cinematics that Blizzard produces. I love the shot that mirrors the Wrathgate with Sylvanas walking out like Arthas. That was badass. The way that Saurfang calls her out, similar to Dranosh Saurfang, was totally awesome. A lot of the nods to the Warcraft movie made me very, very happy. As someone who likes Saurfang and actually likes Sylvanas a good bit as a character, I was happy with the outcome of this cinematic. I think Saurfang got the warrior's death that he deserved, that it was foreshadowed, I think, way at the beginning of BFA, as a lot of us speculated, but I think him going out in a Mak'gara and the fact that Sylvanas is no longer War Chief of the Horde was just such a good outcome. Like, personally, as someone who mains Hawajin Pandaren, after that cinematic, I feel a lot better about being Horde, and it's weird, like, I've gotten more excited about the lore than I ever have in a long time after watching that cinematic.
Yeah.
It felt like I was watching Avengers Endgame again, if I'll be completely honest. Like, when Anduin throws Saurfang Varian's sword. So badass, man. Like, oh my god. That was so cool.
Maybe I misremembered it, but I don't remember him throwing it.
I don't know if he threw it.
I think he just casually hands it over gently, which makes sense for Anduin's character.
Yeah, he just kind of handed it over before the Mak'gara started. But
I think I'm thinking of Avengers by accident.
midway through the fight, he just kind of, breaks it in two. Not breaks it, but
He does the Varian thing.
Yeah, he does the Varian thing.
Turns
it into
he
two
can
swords.
split the two sword, the sword with like two blades attached to it. and like he splits them apart into 2 single blades. It's something Varian did a lot within the comics and the cinematics, and when mostly in Legion you see him do that.
Do
But
you know what's kind of poetic though about that whole thing with his sword? Is the fact at the end of Siege of Orgrimmar when Varian says, "If your horde fails to uphold honor, we will end you." But then it's Sarfang that stops Sylvanas from because she failed to uphold honor. I really like that with his sword. Oh,
it kind of felt like to me anyways, they had Sarfang, he wielded Thrall's axe, which it would have been cooler if it was the Doomhammer, but what can you do? You got Thrall wielding giving Sarfang his axe, which is something I pointed out months ago, that Sarfang lost his axe at Lordaeron. He was forced to drop it after he lost in his battle with the Alliance, and the Alliance basically left the axe at Lordaeron. So I assume the axe is either destroyed or just abandoned within the ruins of Lordaeron, which is filled to the brim with blight. So nobody can really retrieve that. I wonder if we're going to have a moment where, kind of how like Thrall gave Gorhal to Garrosh. I wonder if that'll happen with Thrall giving Sarfang's axe to somebody, maybe Zakan, maybe his son someday. Who knows? Well, I think that'd be really cool. Or they'll bury the axe or something. But you have Sarfang wield Charlemagne, and you have him wielding the Thrall's axe, and it represents of Sarfang kind of fighting for both the Alliance and the Horde there. Both the Alliance and the Horde's weapons are clashing against Sylvanas, and I just really love him calling her out, calling her a failure, making her pissed, making her lose her composure, basically, where she shouts the Horde is nothing, and you kind of have this long pause and this gaze between this Forsaken, like, what did you just say? It's so integral and so important in the lore because it's been something that so many people have wanted for so long, that she reveals her true colors. She shows that she really doesn't care about the Horde. But the Forsaken, they've been in the Horde for so long, and the Horde and the Forsaken have been buddy-buddy. They've had their issues, but the Horde has never really mistreated them too badly compared to the Alliance. The Horde are used to them now. And, the Forsaken have gotten used to being chummies with the Horde, that when Sylvanas calls the Horde as nothing, she's calling the Forsaken nothing, and Sylvanas realizes that, and instead of apologizing, she rolls with it. She just goes, "You're all nothing," and she bails. She's out. She's team rocketing away. She's twinkling.
I was so surprised how quick that happened, too.
I figured she was going to do something that would kill everybody there, but I'm kind of glad she didn't, but it sounds like something else is going to anyways. But, like, Sarfang is a big hero here. Like, this event in history will be remembered in a while for Warcraft, because not only did Sarfang save the Horde and the Alliance, but he didn't let loyalists die for Sylvanas here. The only person who died in this battle was Sarfang, and that's such an important thing. Again, he doesn't discriminate the loyalists for what they did. Again, the whole thing with Nazgrim. Nazgrim was kind of a wake-up call that, it was a positive thing to work for the war chief. It was something they had to do. They felt obligated, and I'm sure someone like Sarfang could understand that, because he's been under so many war chiefs for so long that, with Garrosh, it was really easy to oppose him. But like Sylvanas, that's really challenging for them to do, because Sylvanas has given everything that they wanted, and there wasn't that many reasons why they should stop besides honor, and not everybody cares about honor.
But that parallel, like you said, to Nazgrim, especially that perspective, is so interesting how it's explored here too. Like I don't know, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
They could have just been like, I remember Nazgrim and what he did. Like, they didn't do that.
No, they did it subtly.
Over it. It was very subtle, and the whole honor and loyalty thing. But again, this moment of Sarfang giving himself up, outsmarting Sylvanas by making her lose her composure, her chill. It's just, I'm so happy but sad that Sarfang did what he did. It's gonna be, I got used to the character Sarfang doing more, and now that he's gone, it hurts. It does hurt, and I'm gonna miss the character. But at the same time, he kind of did a Varian here, you know? Like, Varian will be remembered as a hero of the Alliance, and this time Sarfang will be remembered as a hero of the Horde and the Alliance of Azeroth.
I was going to say it echoed not just in Orgrimmar, but throughout literally the whole world what he did. And do you know what I really liked? How if Sarfang didn't do what he did, Siege of Orgrimmar 2 was basically about to happen.
Yeah, people can't say that it's Siege of Orgrimmar 2.0 because of what Sarfang did here. And I really just like that moment where the Forsaken are the ones that kind of do the tip, the tint thing with their banners. Like, they let them. They could have like carried out Sylvanas' will, even though she's no longer with them, of fighting for her and removing these pests who are not loyal to the war chief. No, they go, no, come in. You earned it. Even though he lost the Makara, they lost Sylvanas as a war chief, as a leader, and they're willing to accept that. It's hard, but
they chose the Horde over Sylvanas.
Yeah,
I
have a whole newfound respect for the Forsaken as a faction too. After
that's
that,
such a big moment. And now, when you enter the city, they go, Sylvanas will. The next time we see Sylvanas, we'll make her pay for betraying the Forsaken. It's gonna be weird, seriously weird, to have the Forsaken oppose Sylvanas, because at least with Garrosh, he was a fresh new character added in Burning Crusade. It's not like Thrall betraying the orcs or anything, or betraying the Horde. That would hurt if Thrall ever did that, but thankfully he never did. But like, Sylvanas created the Forsaken. She freed the Forsaken, as we'll see in Reforge and Warcraft 3. They were free because of her. And she's gone. She no longer is their leader. So it's gonna be really weird going forward, whoever is their new leader, whether it be Kalia, Voss, or I don't think it's gonna be Nathanos, because I think it's pretty clear that Nathanos is Team Sylvanas for good, for the time being.
Watch, we get a moment where we go to hunt her down, and then we just find Nathanos or something.
I really don't think Nathanos is gonna ever join Team Horde ever. But
no.
I know some people. I think some people think that for some reason, and I understand the hesitations that he had, but I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I'm not going to throw it out the window, but I'm putting it at least at 90% it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's almost assuredly not going to happen. I know some people feel that it might, but I feel the fact that they kind of confirmed the two are lovers really puts the nail in the coffin on that theory.
I really like that, by the way, too.
Me too. I thought it was pretty interesting that they just kind of.
I knew it was gonna. The main thing, I knew Nathanos felt that way, but it was hard to kind of accept that Sylvanas had those types of feelings, I guess.
Well, I guess she still never really did. It was him that said, he was the one that said my love.
True, but Sylvanas has this weird tone in her voice that sounds very vulnerable and very emotional.
Yeah.
That we don't hear.
It's implied enough that you can put that together, but if they really wanted to be like, oh, she didn't feel that in return, they could.
I mean, at least you clear, like, again, if you guys do the epilogue, if you choose Loyalist to the very end, which is very hard to do for me, I'm gonna do it on my Demon Hunter, but
I've already done it.
That's fair, but yeah, you basically you get to go to the Windrunner Spire, which makes sense. I think that out of all the places, that would be where Sylvanas would go. With, Orgrimmar no longer wanting her presence, Undercity is no longer in her control. The only other place I could really see is maybe Gilneas, but...
Well, I was actually going to mention here that in the cutscene with her, there's another implication with all the Banshees who are still bowing their heads in respect to her.
Yeah.
How everybody says she's a force of death. Well, I mean, that kind of confirms it there, if you ask me. I mean, she doesn't serve the Forsaken, but that doesn't mean she doesn't serve the force of death itself in the end, and maybe she has her own motivations behind that. Maybe she still is kind of opposed to the old gods, and maybe she's she used shadow in the Makara, but maybe that's her way of like fighting fire with fire. Maybe she's learning, I guess you would say, the figurative fire, and she used it in that sense against him.
I think that was strictly death magic, but maybe it was a blend of the two, and that we've never seen that before, because it seems like it's hinted that Ajara and Sylvanas, they struck a bargain. I mean, even Sylvanas says it. I made a bargain with Ajara, which again
Oh
makes
man,
sense.
I cannot
With
wait to
everything
see
that
where
happened,
that goes.
it sounds like Sylvanas is forming her own little villain trio with N'Zoth and Ajara, which who knows how long that'll last. I love it when villains like that work together, though. Like villains who would regularly never work together, but they're working together because everyone else is opposing them now.
Well, they have a lot in common too now, too, Ajara and Sylvanas. They basically
Oh
just
yeah.
lost everything, both of them.
Well, I think Ajara still has some Naga, and obviously Sylvanas still has some Forsaken. And like it's not like in the same case with Ajara, where her people abandon her or she abandons her people. But, you would think that they would do that type of movement with Ajara because, Ajara's like, go ahead and take my people, use them to create your Black Empire with me as their queen. Like, you have that with Sylvanas and Ajara. It's very similar. But, Sylvanas even admits she pitied the Forsaken, but they refused to learn her lessons, where she,
They clung to life, I think was
they
the
clung
dialogue.
to life, they clung to hope. Like, geez, Sylvanas, like, goddamn, it's no wonder. Like, to me, it's not a surprise that her character would do this, especially after Before the Storm and Teldrassil. Like, she even's like, hope fails. Like, she does the whole shebang. And I know a lot of people were hoping for redemption, but I don't see it.
I don't know.
So,
I will say it's a little interesting in the sense that I think they could pull a sort of a Sargeras with her, where yeah, she feels they should abandon these, I guess you would say, positive emotions because she feels they corrupt them, like in a sense that it'll make things more painful in the long run. I guess the sort of preemptive submission, or maybe she just wants to take that part of their judgment out so that they can better face an enemy like the old gods who corrupts your feelings and your emotions.
It makes
and
sense.
Uses those to exploit you. That's the reason why I say I kind of like her character. I just didn't like her character as Warchief. She's cold and calculating. She introduces something unique to the Horde.
The thing that, oh man, that I'm really excited about now is, and I know we were talking about this earlier, but like, I didn't like the fact she was Warchief either, and I really like her character. Like, I love Sylvanas, and to the point now, like, I'm interested in her again. Now that she's not Warchief, I'm really curious with what she's gonna do next. Like, because she's always planning something, and that's something I've always admired about her character. Even if I don't agree with a lot of the stuff she does, this is like the type of Sylvanas I like, in my opinion.
And I always thought the speculated love arc between her and Nathanos, like many people found it kind of groan-worthy, but I feel like they tied it up pretty well. They didn't make it over the top, like you didn't have to do quests about their wedding or anything. It was just kind of there was just kind of a nod to it. Like, it's hey, by the way,
I'll be blunt here. I liked the Thrall and Agra wedding quests, but that's me. Just hint with the whole Nathanos and Sylvanas, they ever had a wedding quest, which that would be really, really weird for and it would also it would kind of feel out of place with them to have a wedding.
I mentioned it like in a parodying.
No, I know. I'm thinking about that in my head. If they ever did something like that, like that sounds really weird now to ever attend that. But I found really interesting with Sylvanas.
I just picture, oh, Nathanos, I hate this kind of cheesecake.
They could remix some 80s song. It's a fine day for a blight wedding. Sorry. that was awful. Go ahead.
I'm really curious what Sylvanas sent Nathanos on this time, because last time she sent, I'm guessing that they did something with Xalatath because it's no longer in their possession, and the last time we see it is when Nathanos is in Nezhtar. So I'm guessing he gave it to N'Zoth or something. I don't know why. Honestly, it sounds suspicious as fudge that they would do that. Maybe they somehow gave it to Ajara, and like maybe it was like Ajara turned the tables when she gets captured by N'Zoth. Like N'Zoth's like, "Oh, I got you now, Ajara. You're gonna be my puppet now," or something. And Ajara points the dagger at N'Zoth, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I don't know. It's really I don't know what they're gonna do with Zaltath, but I'm really curious in what Nathanos is up to, because it sounds like Sylvanas like sent him out on a really dangerous mission now, which could mean anything. It could be negotiating with N'Zoth, it could be negotiating with Ajara, and Nathanos could die easily from doing that. He's not a very powerful character. I mean, yes, he took on Tyrande and Malfurion with the help of 2 Valkyrs, but I mean, he had numbers there.
Right.
And when you're confronting an old god, even Ajara, with all her power and glory, I don't even think Ajara would be able to take on N'Zoth, especially in the water, without, her Naga abilities. I do wonder if N'Zoth can take that away from Ajara at times. Like, we've seen what N'Zoth does with his lackeys once they're no longer useful. With Deathwing, he shoved him on a tower. Yeah,
he's probably not the nicest guy to work for.
Yeah, I don't think the fact that he was so gentle with Ajara is suspicious. But I do think going forward, it's interesting now that the emphasis with the Banshee bowing their heads to Sylvanas. I do think that they're gonna go back to the roots with Sylvanas before she became the leader of the Forsaken, where she's mainly her main units are mainly Scourge units, former Scourge units. I could fully see her using the Sand Lane. I could see her using the Banshees, obviously the Valkyr. I think she's going to become a second Scourge, especially but primarily mostly Banshees.
I mean,
think that's
they've been foreshadowing a lot of mirrors to the Lich King with her too.
Oh yeah.
So you can't forget that if they do go that route with her.
I mean, my secondary option was Zaltath. If it was an Ajara or N'Zoth, I figured it might be the Lich King. Like, why damn yourself wearing the Helm of Domination when you can just absorb that power to the dagger and use it for your own? I could totally see Sylvanas doing that so she can skip the 5-year wait.
So, not to change the subject, but we're at around 45 minutes right now. And I think it'd be a good time to talk about the Rebellion epilogue in Orgrimmar.
Oh, yeah. The feels.
First of all, definitely the feels. I liked a lot of the shots that Blizzard chose to use during that cinematic. G Firepaw was there, which made me very happy. I know that you're happy that Rexar was there as well.
You know it.
I liked the use of... I'm thinking about probably the wrong things first, but I liked that there was the honor-bound Pandaren warriors in the crowd. But yeah, overall, the dialogue, that was honestly probably one of the saddest moments in-game, I think, that they've done.
For a while.
I almost wish I did a reaction of myself watching it for the first time, that piece, but it was really well done, and it was a nice little touch, and like I feel like, again, this was just such a crazy finale, and I like how you get a title, too, at the end of it. Veteran of
the Fourth War, which just kind of echoes and ripples the fact that, I guess this was the Fourth War, or at the very least, everything after Warcraft 3 has been the Fourth War, so I really do hope going forward with Warcraft's lore that we don't have another faction war of this scale. I feel like it would really demean Sarfing's death. I think it would demean Battle for Azeroth entirely. I really do think, like, as much as I loved Mista Pandaria, immediately when you get into Warlords of Draenor, they randomly jump back into the faction conflict within Ashran for a stupid reason. And I don't count it as canon because they barely acknowledge it. They barely touch upon it. With like Ashran and whatnot, it didn't feel canon. It didn't feel right. I mean, you have Yulon randomly show up and help devastate the other side. That felt really weird for an August Celestial to do that.
Wait, what? I never even knew about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the monk items you can use. It says they actually call it Yulon. I don't know if I would say. I would say if it's.
They use her voice actor too.
I would say maybe they. I don't know.
It's not canon.
That is silly.
Yeah, it feels really strange.
It hurts, but the whole Sarfang funeral hurt, and I love the theme that they use
The
because
music, man. Oh.
it's the only soundtrack we have right now that we can use that resembled Sarfang's theme. It sounds like they're gonna bury Sarfang in Nagrand, very similar to how his son wanted to be buried in Nagrand, or at least that's what Sarfang wanted.
I think it's
But,
confirmed, actually, that they're taking him to Nagrand.
Yes, no, I'm saying that's what they said. But it sounds like they're gonna bury him next to his son, next to his wife. Again, it really does hurt to say goodbye to Sarfang after this long road with this character since the start of BFA. A lot of people liked him. He's a fan favorite from classic World of Warcraft, and the reason why he became so popular was just because he could cleave people. It goes to show you that Blizzard literally took a character that was a meme for most of the populace of WoW and made him into a badass character that everyone loved.
Right?
And he's gone now, and that's gonna hurt. That's gonna sting. I mean, Blizzard rarely kills off characters, at least not permanently. At least, like Nazgrim came back, so it kind of demeaned, in my opinion, as much as I like that Nazgrim came back, it did demean his death.
Yeah.
And that was the point, though, with Nazgrim. But with Sarfang, I swear if Sylvanas goes like, he, look at me, I'm raising Sarfang up, he's gonna fight for me now, that will piss me off, and that would make me want them to kill her right then and there if she ever did that.
Oh my god, if she gets her own raid and he's a boss in it, I am gonna be so triggered.
That will hurt me, man. I don't think it's gonna happen, though. I feel, although for some reason they didn't burn his body, which is, worrisome in my eyes, but that seems a lot of work, though, like, just to, give Sarfang the middle finger. Like, I could see her doing it, but go all the way to Outlands, take his body, risk being caught, take the body back to Azeroth, raise it, make it your minion, make that minion kill stuff. It seems a lot of work just to make people angry.
I think she has other things on her mind right now.
Yeah,
I think that's a little.
I
Let's
don't
be kind of petty.
It is petty, but it is also Sylvanas, unfortunately. But I really like.
I don't know. She doesn't seem petty. I wouldn't describe her as petty. She's just.
I don't know. I would argue she's not exactly the nicest person, and I could totally see her doing that sort of thing just to, give the middle. Like she.
My point. When I say petty, I mean she would have to have a very clear goal with doing something like that, not just to be like, haha, screw you guys, I'm angry. Like, I feel like she would need to demoralize the Horde or something for some particular cause to do that. Like,
I could definitely see her using Sarfang's body to kill the people that he died to protect. So,
but she would have to be full on baddie at that point.
I feel like they would do that, though.
Here's the thing. Sylvanas has done some awful shit, but I actually don't know. I don't think she's gonna go off on a revenge quest for some reason. I just don't get those vibes.
She's
right
not.
now.
She's not Garrosh levels, but I mean, we'll honestly have to see. I mean, I know Gen wants her head.
Oh,
but I really like
man.
8-3 is gonna be interesting. I don't know how they're gonna take it. Sounds like N'Zoth is gonna be a thing. I really hope we get a cinematic with. I don't know if we're gonna get any more CGI cinematics. I'm perfectly fine with this being the last one, but if they do more, I'm all for it. That's 5 CGI cinematics we get then.
I would like the last raid to be in Silithus, personally. After all this, I don't know why. I just feel like BFA started there. Let's end it there too.
Silithus is pretty open. It's got some mountains and hills, of course, but an old god of that size could probably crash through it. But it's pretty open to the. It's pretty close to the ocean enough to for an old god to be invade it. So I could see them doing that. I wonder if the goal that N'Zoth would be is to absorb all of the other dead old gods, because if Xal'atath is proof, then other old gods ripped apart Xal'atath when she was a full-grown old god, and they absorbed her power, which some people speculate that's how Yasharaj became so powerful. He ate up most of her
Oh.
but I back to the funeral though. I really liked the part where Thrall and Jaina kind of look at one another, and I really was
Oh
happy
man,
that.
at the end, right?
Oh yeah, and I was really happy that a lot of the Horde showed up. You had Gazlo, you had Rexar, obviously. You had just about everybody, even an injured Bane. Just everybody showed up and they had their own words to say. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I really just liked that whole aesthetic of characters talking about Sarfang, and you even again after the whole thing, you have characters throughout the city who even celebrate what Sarfang did. I don't know if I caught anyone saying anything negative about Sarfang. As far as I know, I don't think so. You have some Forsaken doubters who are like, I'm not sure if Sylvanas is really against us. Some of the Forsaken have doubts. They really liked their Banshee Queen.
And you can't
But,
really blame them either from their point of view.
No.
Either.
They've had Sylvanas with them since the start of their voyage as Forsaken, as being freed from the Scourge. It's going to be really interesting going forward, and that's why I kind of hope that we don't have this merger between the factions. I think that the factions should still remain isolated, but I'm perfectly fine with them working together more often.
I agree with that. I want them to stay isolated, but I wouldn't be opposed to us, like you said, being able to maybe play with opposite faction members or potentially do some sort of quests with them. I think we need to end the faction stuff for now and be united for a while, because we're going to be facing some serious stuff soon.
We're going to be facing N'Zoth, and apparently Sylvanas is like, N'Zoth and Ajara, they're going to litter the corpses of the cities with, corpses.
I know, I feel like this patch ended too positively for us. I feel like some shit
I was
going
to say
down.
that. Oh, man. I mean, Sarfang died, and he was the only death of that siege, which, again, that at least allowed us to skip out on a War of the Draenor ending.
Mm-hmm.
But, I do think that this negative stuff is about to go down. I just hope that they don't kill off. I don't want an endgame moment. I mean, it depends on how they handle it. Like, if characters can come back, like Endgame had it phrased, and, kind of foreshadowed, then I'm fine with it, I guess, because that would give us a goal for the next expansion to save those people. But if it's like those characters are dead for good and they all die like massive nukes of deaths, like a Theramore bombing, basically, where characters basically 1 second they're alive, 1 second they're dead on screen, it would hurt, and it wouldn't feel as earned, I guess, for some characters, like certain characters who definitely deserve bigger deaths and bigger screen time than that. So I guess we'll just have to see. I do kind of hope that like Sylvanas' like little alliance between her and
Halia.
Well, not Halia, but I mean Halia thing might come up too. Which I do wonder if that will. That means the Kavoldir might work for Sylvanas too. I mean, I don't know. Could possibly.
We'll find
but
out.
Like I said, I think she's serving the force of death itself.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but we also know that Halia and Ajara are working with Sylvanas to some degree, so it's possible with that in mind, she might get a little bit more both power and army. I mean, even Lorthamar is like, why would Sylvanas leave the Horde now? Like, basically, what does she have to gain for leaving the Horde? She could have. I mean, even if the Forsaken were iffy about her at that moment for calling them nothing, I do wonder if the Forsaken still would have stood by her side after what she said. Because, like, even some of them still have doubts in the city. So if Sylvanas never left and never kind of, like, flew up in the sky, I do wonder if things would have panned out the same. Or, if, like, everyone would turn on Sylvanas at that moment. It brings a lot of questions on what ifs and whatnot, but I do wonder about that, and I do wonder what Sylvanas and what she's gonna do next. It's really curious. I mean, she even goes like, "You guys will see the next time you see me," which says this to the loyalists. You will see and understand what I'm talking about, basically.
I like how she says nothing lasts when she flies off. That was cool.
She says that twice.
She I like that that's her quote now, kind of. But I will say we're at an hour right right now, so I'd like to
Yeah.
talk about the Alliance epilogue, and then we'll end it there, because this has been quite a good podcast. I mean, it is funny because there's still more to talk about, but like we can say we're gonna be talking about this patch more, guys, in the future. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
I want to do an episode solely on Sylvanas next, to be honest.
Oh boy.
I really would like to do a podcast on that. But the Alliance epilogue, well, I haven't played through it. I watched it. Kalia and Derek interacting. Pretty cool. I like
Technically,
that.
that's not an Alliance epilogue because Horde can do it too.
Oh, can they
And
actually?
Technically, I watched a stream of it. Basically, the Alliance don't even get a cutscene. Horde is the ones that get the cutscene.
Oh.
Because we peek in on it. Like Lillian Voss sends us over, which is why it's going to be my topic for my next video. Is basically Voss sends you over to check on Kalia, and Kalia and Derek are either together or they're just buddies. It's hard to say. I would say they're together, but that's just from looking at the cutscene of them holding hands. The way they hold hands, it's kind of doesn't look like friendship, but you know, then again, Jaina kind of touches Thrall in a weird way, and people perk up and go,
Ooh,
"Are they
baby.
a thing?" But it brings a lot of questions to the table because now that the Forsaken don't have a leader, it sounds like Lillian Voss and Kalia are going to compete for Forsaken Queen or
So
Queen of Lordaeron.
let me say right away, I would much rather Lillian Voss take that role than Kalia, but that's just me.
I mean, I think a lot of people are with you. I mean, Lillian Voss has been with us since Cataclysm, so it would stem to make sense that Blizzard has been building that up for a while. Like maybe they planned the whole Sylvanas arc since then. I'm sure there's somewhere in their writing where they were like, okay, we're gonna do this with Sylvanas at some point. Put it in the bookmarks. Put it in the Blizzard library.
They just write it on a napkin.
I mean, I could definitely see Kalia Menethil being a possibility too,
Mhm.
but she's fresh from Legion, which at the same time is when Sylvanas' arc started to rise up again, and that was around the time when a lot more people viewed Sylvanas positively, which is, again, when we look back on World of Warcraft expansions and stories, it's going to feel weird with Sylvanas, kind of like how it felt weird with Garrosh. Like, we grew used to Garrosh being kind of a douchebag, but he kind of became even worse over time. With Sylvanas, a lot of people like her for her maliciousness, but, you know, she kind of steps over the line with what happened yesterday, with what happened this cinematic, with calling everyone nothing, basically.
So, I just want to say one thing about Kalia, and I've said this before, even though we don't know much about her, I just do not trust that look. I don't trust anything called a light-forged undead or a light-bound undead, whatever she's called. I don't trust her. I honestly, I don't know if she'll become a villain, but I just see her being this, like, manipulative, like, light being that's not too powerful, but, like, long-term. I don't know. I just don't trust the Naru, man, or anything to do with them. Especially after Zera, man. That shit was scary in Legion.
I'm with you, but I'm like in the middle. I'm split with Kalia. I think that what we saw with her in the cutscene, she seems pretty positive. I think that at most because like this is her character since before the storm, she sounds like a character she's gonna try to do the right thing, kind of like Rathian, but ends up making it worse with her actions. I think that she might make a lot of whoopsies at most right now. I think that the character that'll represent the darker side of the light will be Yrel going forward, and that Kalia may be a positive light influence. I don't know. It's really hard to tell right now because you have Void Elves who are positive right now, so maybe it'll just be kind of like Void Elves, where there's good Void Elves and there's bad Void Elves, where there's good light and there's bad light. I think that should be represented the best.
Oh,
in WoW.
there has to be, because you can play some Lightforged Paladins, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you have like
Lightforged in
Naru,
general.
like Adol. Adol's a good Naru. I mean, the only negative thing he did was have us kill Illidan, but at the time that made sense because Illidan didn't tell us everything, and Zero was the one that freaked out the most about that. So hey, if that's anything to think about, I guess Adol's the good Naru and Zera's the bad Naru, and we should high five Adol all the time.
So I would like to end this soon, but Kai, do you have anything you want to say about that ending scene?
All I was gonna say is, sorry, I accidentally hit mute. I do think the factions are going bye-bye.
Mhm.
I know you guys don't really like that idea too much.
No.
I think
I'm not opposed to it.
I think they're gone. I think they're gone, or
Mm,
that it's in the very close future. You're gonna have some people that are gonna cling on to the past a bit, but I think the most prominent one that comes to mind is obviously you got Gin and you've got
Tyrande.
I think Tyrande. I think they're gonna clash a bit, but I don't know. I do think the factions in that sense are going like
mm,
they're gonna kind of. I think they're gonna phase away everybody kind of being shoehorned into either alliance or horde, and then I think I'm hoping actually that they're gonna do something with the minor factions where you kind of have BGs based or just PvP content either on a free for all basis, maybe free for all except for party members or something,
I
and
don't know about that.
maybe they'll have like you know, rep choices like I said with the Scryers and Aldor. You know, they could do some pretty cool things because they can open that up to anything. You can have 2v2, 3v3, 5v5.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us at the Kun-Lai Campfire today. This has been Kai and Skull Shorties. A lot of good discussion. I can't wait to see where they go with this. But thank you all so much for your continued support. We really appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions for topics, let us know in the comments below. We'd be happy to cover them. And we'll see you guys next time.
Ciao.
Bye.